Hello and welcome to Relatable Code. In this video, we're going to talk about navigation between activities in Android. So let's get started. Navigating between different screens in Android is a very fundamental concept. And in this video, we're going to learn how to navigate between different activities in Android. I chose activities because I wanted to make a modern tutorial for an old school concept in Android development. In your applications, you will find fragments more than activities and even composables. Okay, but we're going to start with activities. They're the basic building blocks, if you want, for Android development. And I'm going to show you how to pass data back and forth between activities. Okay, so I already have 3 activities set up, and they are the login activity, the main activity, and the settings activity. Okay, our first screen will be this login screen, which contains a username edit text, a password edit text, and a login button. Our second screen will be our main activity, which contains a text view and a button to navigate to the settings activity, which is our third screen containing an edit text and a button. I already have the XML set up because we've already covered how to set up these XML components in previous videos, so make sure to check them first. But I'm going to show you a fast overview of our components. So these are just normal edit texts. They have hints. This is the hint for the first one. This is the hint for the second edit text. And we have a normal button here. Okay. In the activity underscore main, we just have a text view with this text inserted and a button which has a text of go to settings. Our settings activity just has this edit text with this text preloaded into the edit text and a button with a text of save. Okay, that's our XML components, and now we're going to set up the navigation between them. Okay, so make sure that your manifest is properly set up as well. You need to have these 3 activities in your manifest, and the main launcher activity has to be your login activity. Okay, so that it can be launched as the first screen of your application. So those are our 3 activities. I also have ViewBinding set up in our app module right there. You add build features and ViewBinding equal true. You click on sync now, and you will have ViewBinding set up in your application. I've also made a video for ViewBinding, so make sure to check that out as well. And I just have a very basic binding setup for our login activity, our main activity, and our settings activity. So we're going to start with our login activity. It contains an edit text with an ID of et underscore username and a password edit text of et underscore password. So as a user, when I click on this button, I want to navigate to my main activity, okay, which is this screen. Let's run our application first and check how it looks like. That's our emulator, and there you have the login screen. So here you can write any username, and here you can write any password. I have this set up for my password edit text through the input type filter. You can search for it by clicking on the password edit text, the search view right there, and going to input type. And here for my input type, click on the flag, click on text as an option, and text password as a variation. Okay, that's how you set up and edit text like that for your password. And that's the basic setup. Now we want to have a data class which we can send from our login activity to our main activity. So let's create that in this folder. Right click on that folder, go to new, and go to Kotlin class or file. We're going to call this UserInfo, and it will be a data class. Double click on that, and for our UserInfo, we want to pass our username between our screens. So go ahead and enter a username like that. It will be of type string, of course. So we want to send that username from our login activity to our main activity. And we can do that like this. First, we have to extract the username from this activity, and we can have that from our edit text. So let's create a user info object right here. Write val user info equals to user info with a capital U to reference the data class. And here we have to pass a username. So you can write username equals to binding dot et username dot text dot toString. Et username, as I've specified, is the ID of my edit text for the username. So in my login activity, I now have a user info, and I want to send it from this activity to the main activity. And the way that I can do that is with an intent. So what's an intent in Android? Intent is short for intention if you want, and it's an intention which you have to specify before you do any kind of action like this, an action like navigating from one screen to another. Okay? And it's very easy to create. So underneath user info, you create a login intent equals to intent. You have to give it your current destination. So you have to use this in case you're inside an activity to reference the login activity in our case. And we have to specify the destination where we want to go to. In our case, that would be our main activity class.java. Okay. This is an intent to tell the Android system that we want to, or we plan on navigating from this screen to the main activity screen. Okay. And to be able to pass data through an intent, our data has to be marked as either a serializable or a parcelable. And the reason for that is because we're dealing with activities. Activities have their own life cycles. Okay, so they can get created and they can get destroyed. But we want our object to maintain its state or structure throughout those life cycle changes. And in order to have it persist its state and information, we have to mark it as either serializable or parcelable so that our operating system can save it accordingly. Okay, and you can use either method, but I prefer the method of using a parcelable because it's the Android way, if you want, of marking objects and sending them between different components in your application. It's faster than the serializable alternative, which is the Java way of doing an action like that. Okay, you can declare it as a serializable like this. You have to extend serializable from the java.io package, but we're going to use a parcelable in this case. Okay, so go to your app module, navigate to the top, and you need to have this plugin so that you can work with parcelables in Kotlin. So it will be just an ID. You open the parentheses, you use double quotations, and you write Kotlin-parcelize. You click on sync now after that, so that you can now use the parcelize annotation. Okay, and that's the parcelize annotation from the Kotlin x.parcelize package. And you have to write parcelable. So now our object is saved into Android's bundle so that it can persist its state for whatever reason which might destroy it. Okay, and that's very essential to know with respect to Android development. Now we have a parcelable object which we can now send from our login activity to our main activity. And the way we can do that is through our intent. We can write login intent dot put extra, and here we have to specify a key to send this object with. We're going to name that key UserInfo, and our object will be our UserInfo variable, which we created right there with a small u, okay, to reference that variable. And in the end, to actually have this intent work, you have to write startActivity and you have to give it your intent, which is login intent in this case. If you now rerun your application, okay, this is not the login activity. Did I change something in our XML? This should be login activity, just like that. That should be true. And our login activity should have this setup, basically. But that happened because, of course, we need to attach this to our onClick listener for the login button. So here, write binding.btn login, set onClick listener, and that's where you want to place your logic. Or else, after launching this activity immediately, the other activity, which is main activity, will be launched. Okay, so rerun your application. And there you have your login activity. So here you can write your username. You can write any password which you want. Click on login, and that's our main activity. Okay, we sent an intent with this code, but we didn't receive the intent yet inside our main activity. And that's what we want to do now. We want to receive that intent, and we want to display that username inside this edit text. Okay, and doing that is actually pretty straightforward. So we sent a UserInfo object here. We have to receive a UserInfo object inside our main activity. We can do that by val UserInfo equals to intent, just like that, with a small I, dot get ParcelableExtra. It has to specify a type, which will be UserInfo, and the key, which was UserInfo, just like that. Okay, and here let's cast it to a safe UserInfo and delete the UserInfo from that type, so that this application doesn't crash, basically. Okay, so UserInfo will try to get the parcelable from this key, which we used from the login activity, to get that UserInfo object, and it will be a nullable UserInfo, because if for any reason something happened and this information was not passed properly from the previous activity, we don't want to have a null pointer exception, okay? And we don't want that to crash our application. So after that, we received our UserInfo. Now we need to access our text view, which is TV username, okay? Inside your main activity, write binding.TV username dot set text if you want, or text directly. You can have that text equals to hello $user info dot username, and that's how we can access. We need to have that as a nullable object because it may be null at this stage. That's how we access the username from our user info to display it inside our text view. So rerun your application. So here write any username, here write any password, click on login, and here you have hello John, which is the username that we sent from our login activity. Okay, and now we're going to send this username to our settings activity, where we can modify this username and send it back to our main activity. And that's also pretty straightforward to do. It's very similar to the approach that we used in the login activity, but with some differences. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So here we also have to specify an intent for the settings activity, because we want to create an intention to navigate to that settings activity. Okay, so here you can write val settings intent equals to intent this, which is our current activity, and the destination, which is our settings activity, class.java. Okay, and we want to put the extra, which is our UserInfo object as it is, the same way that we did with our login activity. So go back to your main activity, write settings intent dot put extra. We're also going to use this key, and we're going to pass our UserInfo as it is. And if you may notice, I didn't talk about it, but getParcelableExtra is deprecated, but I'll show you how to use the modern approach, or the method which is not deprecated in a while, okay? In this video, of course. So here, after creating that intent, we're going to have to use a method similar to startActivity, but it will be startActivityForResult, because we're not just navigating to the settings activity, we're navigating to the settings activity and we're expecting a result in return. Okay, and you're going to see how it works in a little bit. So this startActivityForResult expects an intent. We have that, and it also expects an integer, which is the result code. Let's create that real quick. The way to do this, the preferred way to do this, if you want, is creating a companion object for your activity, and here defining the result code as a constant, which is pretty good practice. So here you have const val. You can say settings result code equals to, for example, 100. It just has to be an integer, doesn't matter which integer. Okay, and inside startActivityForResult, let's use it with settings result code, just like that. This is also deprecated, and I will also show you the modern way of doing this. Okay, so don't worry about that. And now we have the ability to navigate to our settings activity. If we run our application, let's create a username, a password. I have a problem with on-click listeners for some reason. We're going to place this code, this sensitive code, inside an on-click listener. This should be basic elementary for me. For some reason, I keep forgetting it. Okay, it should be placed inside the on-click listener of your Go to Settings button. So if I now enter a username and a password, I go to my main activity with Hello Thaer, and if I click on Go to Settings, I get navigated to the Settings activity. And that Settings activity, I want to receive this username so that I can modify it however I want. Okay, and that's also straightforward to do. So inside Settings activity, you're basically going to have the same setup like that for your user info, but you need to set the text of your edit text according to the username. Okay, and you can do that with set text UserInfo.username. Of course, this may be nullable, so we need to handle that with the question mark operator. Okay, and now it should display the username which we received from the previous activity. Let's make a quick check for that. Do we have unclick listeners? No. Enter your username, enter your password, hello there, go to settings, and here you have there. Okay, inside your edit text, which you can modify as you want. And now we're going to program our save button to navigate us back to our main activity with our updated username. And to do that, we need to specify an intent to go backwards. And it's very straightforward to do with intent.putExtra. We're going to use the same string for UserInfo and UserInfo as it is. And beneath that, we're going to use setResult. You're going to see how it works, and it will be result underscore OK with a finish at the end. And what I did here was basically to exit this activity, you need a function like finish, which will finish the activity basically and navigate to the previous activity if it exists. If it's the only activity in your application, it will just close your application. But because we want to send data back to our previous activity, we used setResult underscore OK so that we can know that the operation was successful inside our settings activity. And the way that we can listen to this inside our main activity is with a pre-built method in Android, which is onActivity or activity. There it is, onActivityResult. Okay, and inside onActivityResult, you can check for your request code, your result code, and your data, which you receive from somewhere else. In our case, our settings activity. So inside your main activity, let's check first if our result code was equal to result underscore OK, which means that I'm sorry about that. This should be request code like that, because it's the code that we want to send this request with if you want. Okay. Inside this, you can check for request code to make sure that it's the request code that you sent with this settings intent. So here you are sure that the settings activity returned a result OK, which you can listen to inside this pre-built method. And to make sure that the settings activity is the activity that sent this result OK, you can use the settings request code as specified here, because you sent it when you used startActivityForResult for that settings intent. So inside this code, you are sure that you are navigating from the settings activity, which means you can check for the user info, which you are sending from that settings activity. You can do it just like this. You can name this, for example, input user info. And you can get that not from intent, from your data, which may be nullable, so you have to use that question mark. And after getting that input user info, you have to update your text view. Okay, so here write binding.tvUsername.text equals to hello, whatever username is returned from input UserInfo, which may be nullable as well. So rerun your application. There you have it. Let's say this is Thaer AK password 123. Hello Thaer AK, go to settings, hello null. We didn't properly navigate to the settings activity here, which is weird. We had button settings activity, but inside our settings activity, did we properly set up our binding? Yes, we did. And that's a text view. Inside our settings, we should have seen this one, but our main activity was set up with intent, settings activity put extra, startActivityForResult for settings intent. Oh no. I told you I have a problem with these. We need to use the button for our onClick listener. So binding.btn save set onClick listener. We don't want to immediately navigate back to our main activity. We need to do that after clicking on the button. Enter your username, enter your password. Hello Thaer, go to settings. This is Thaer. Thaer 12, save, hello null. So here we're receiving it as null inside our onActivityResult, and that's because inside our set result, we're sending result OK. Can we send an intent along with that? Yes, we can. Rerun the application. So here we have Thaer AK, password 123, hello Thaer AK, AK47. And that did not update as well. Let's see why. We had input UserInfo. Yes, because we're not sending the updated username from our settings activity. We are just sending the same UserInfo back to our main activity. And I'm glad actually that we have all these errors. I'm not actually glad about them, but I wanted you to know what type of issues you might face when implementing this flow. So when sending back our UserInfo, let's send back our UserInfo with our updated value for the username. Okay, you can do it like this. You can create a new UserInfo object with username equals to dot text dot toString. That basically. If you rerun the application, you can enter any username you want. Hello, go to settings, click on save, and here you can see the string is updated because now we're sending the updated username back to our main activity where we are receiving it inside this function, inside this code. We are intercepting our UserInfo with this key basically. We are casting it safely to a UserInfo, and we are updating our text view right there with hello and whatever username is being sent back from the settings page. Okay, that's how our entire flow worked. So at first we had an onClick listener for our button. Don't forget your onClick listeners. We created a UserInfo object with basically the username that we entered inside the login activity, and we sent it to our main activity through an intent. We did that with the put extra, and inside our main activity. We received it as a parcelable because we annotated it as a parcelable so that we can send it from one component to another, basically. We received it right there, and we updated our username in the main activity according to the username that we sent from the login activity with this code. Okay, and when we click on go to settings, we attached an on-click listener to that. We created another intent with this UserInfo object. We sent it with this key, which we used to receive it as well inside our settings activity. We casted it to a UserInfo object safely because it may be null at this point. And we updated our edit text accordingly with that value. And after clicking on the save button, we send back the username that we had inside that edit text. Okay, and we did that with the normal intent of the activity, so we didn't create a new intent for that. We used the normal intent. We had put extra with the same key that we are listening to inside onActivityResult for our main activity, along with the object that we want to send back. Okay, we created a new object with username equals to whatever value we had inside this edit text. Okay, we used setResult result OK along with the intent so that we can listen to it as well with this piece of code so that we can intercept that intent along with any object that we are sending with getParcelableExtra for that key as UserInfo before updating our username with that updated value from SettingsActivity. Okay, I hope that was clear. That was a lot of information to digest. I wanted you to basically know the full flow which may happen. Okay, and here we can have a few optimizations. For example, this UserInfo string right here can be made as a constant like we did with our settings request code. Okay, so here you can specify a constant like arg underscore user underscore info, which can have this value. Okay, this will not change because this is a key basically, which means we can now update our strings with this key like that. The same thing goes for our login activity. We can reference that now with main activity arg user info, which will now point to this constant in case we want to change for whatever reason the value of this constant in the future. We will now only have to change it in one place. Okay, and when sending it to our settings activity, we can also use a companion object here if you want, which is good practice. Okay, you can keep that and use it as it is. If you want to send data to a certain activity, it's better to use an object from that activity. Like this, for example, I want to put some data for my main activity. So I reference it like main activity arg user info. And if I want to send a request to our settings activity, I can use settings activity dot arg user info, which will now refer to the constant for that settings activity. Okay, I think that's better practice actually, and that's one of the optimizations which we can do. Another optimization is for this getParcelableExtra, which is deprecated in Android 33. Okay, as of the recording of this video, this method was deprecated in API level 33. And there's a workaround for that. There's actually a function that I made which we can use here. Let me show you what this function is. I'm going to copy and paste it into a helper file, just like that. I don't want to waste time with writing it, but you can definitely get it from this video. Okay, it's an inline function using a reified generic type, and it's an extension function for our intent. Okay, it basically checks if the current SDK version is greater than or equal to 33 to use the updated getParcelableExtra function, which needs you to specify the class of the object that you want to pass. Okay, and if it's not greater than or equal to 33, it's just safe to use the deprecated version because it's only deprecated for 33 and above. Okay, so now I can include this function inside the video description or any other place you can get it if you want to. We can now use it inside the main activity directly. Instead of writing getParcelableExtra, we can now write safelyGetParcelableExtra, which expects a key and the object itself, okay, which should be a class.java. So we can now erase this, and now you don't have a warning anymore because you're handling this inside the function now, okay? It will properly handle parcelables for Android versions 33 and above, and it will use the old method for the older versions of Android. Okay, that's a very handy function which we may use in future videos. Okay, that's how we modernized the application with an argument for our activities and a modern method for receiving parcelables, basically. You can double check to make sure it works by rerunning that application. Okay, enter a username again, any username that you want. Login, and as you can see, I'm properly receiving that username with safelyGetParcelableExtra. Okay, and one more thing that we can do in this video regarding startActivityForResult. Since it's deprecated, I'm going to show you how to use an activity contract. Okay, so let's create an activity result contract as a substitute for the deprecated startActivity4 contract or startActivityForResult, sorry. Okay, and you can do that with a simple way with private val settings result launcher, for example, you can name it whatever you want, of course, equals to register for activity result. Here you have to pass activity result contracts dot start activity for result. Okay, that's how you should create it, and this will be a lambda which will return a result that you can work with. I specified it like that. You can also rename that to whatever you want. And inside this launcher, we just want to make sure that the result is result underscore OK, like we did here. So you can write an if result dot result code equals to result underscore OK, which is essentially an integer equals to -1. But we're going to use result underscore OK. And inside that code, we're going to do this basically. So let's write that instead of data, we have result dot data like that. And here we can write our safelyGetParcelableExtra, which expects a key and the object, which is UserInfo class.java, just like that. And here I think we have the same warning. which is fine. This is something related to strings. Okay. To use that launcher, you can use it right there when you want to specify the intent that you want to send to SettingsActivity. You can write SettingsResultLauncher.launch and pass the intent itself. Okay, we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore as well. And if you notice, we actually don't need the request code anymore because we can create multiple launchers in our activity. We can create a launcher for our settings activity. We can create a launcher for any other activity and launch it wherever you want. It's different from onActivityResult, which is not that flexible, which is why we had to use a request code in that case, because there was only a single place we could intercept that startActivityForResult, unlike our launchers, which we can have multiple of, and inside this launcher, we are sure that we have a result OK from the activity, which was the settings activity in our case. Okay, just to make sure this works, be on your application, enter your username, enter your password, which we are doing nothing with in this application. So this is just for show. Click on login, we have hello Thaer. Go to settings, here we have Thaer 12, click on save, and it froze. Okay, that was because of the emulator, not because of the application. And here we have hello Thaer 12, which means that this code properly intercepted the data that was being returned from settings activity, okay, and modified it accordingly. Because we removed the start activity for result, we commented it out, and we commented out this code as well, okay. And that was the modern way of passing data between activities in Android. If you find my type of content to be relatable, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next video.